in the New York office of Darryl F. Zanuck, President and Chief Executive Officer of 20th Century Fox Film Corporation and the producer of The Longest Day.
Ladies and gentlemen, this June 6th marks the 25th anniversary of the Allied invasion of Hitler's Nazi-occupied Europe. In the intervening years, I had often wondered what the battle-scarred beaches of Normandy looked like today. The idea intrigued me to such an extent that a few months ago, I assembled a camera crew and set out to see for myself. What you are about to witness is the result of this expedition. To be more explicit, it is a combination of film excerpts from The Longest Day, interwoven with a photographic tour of the actual invasion areas as they now exist. As a simple guide for you, the film excerpts from The Longest Day will appear in black and white photography, and the film I photographed on this expedition will appear in color. In the entire history of warfare, no undertaking had ever approached in size or stakes the D-Day invasion. The future history of the world hung in the balance, and if its outcome had been otherwise, it is quite possible that you and I would not be here today. Producing this documentary was more than a sentimental journey. It led me to certain personal conclusions and viewpoints, which I would like to share with you. They far transcend the making of a film. I hope you will agree with me. Thank you. In anticipation of the 25th anniversary of the Allied invasion of Nazi-occupied France, I revisited Normandy with a 20th Century Fox camera crew for the sole purpose of photographically recording the comparison between D-Day, June 6, 1944, and Normandy as it is today, 25 years later. With our camera crew, we photographed the key landing beaches, as well as the villages that played such a vital part in the fighting that commenced shortly after midnight, June 6, 1944. We are approaching the Normandy village of St. Mere-Eglise. St. Mere-Eglise straddles the main highway that runs between Cherbourg in the north and the city of Caen in the south. It was the primary route of the enemy transportation system, which supplied the Nazi bunkers and fortifications on the cliffs overlooking the landing beaches. St. Mere-Eglise was not the actual target of the paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne Division. The village was known to Allied intelligence as the headquarters of a formidable Nazi garrison. Paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne Division came down over this strategic town. Unfortunately, a flare had set a house on fire right over there. The decision to make these paratroop landings had been difficult. Military leaders knew that losses might be heavy, and they were. But St. Mere-Eglise had to be held to prevent the Germans from bringing up reinforcements to the landing beaches. This is the Orne River that empties into the English Channel. We are approaching the Pegasus Bridge just outside the city of Caen. Pegasus Bridge was the scene of another night battle prior to the Allied invasions. It occurred in the early morning at approximately 17 minutes after 2 a.m., June 6th. The basic Allied strategy of these pre-dawn attacks was to cut off the Nazi reinforcements from the north at St. Mere-Eglise and from the south at the Pegasus Bridge, so that the 5 key landing beaches in between would be blocked from enemy reinforcements once the Allied invasion began. Where do you think we should start?
Well, I was intending to start at this close-up. Is that all right?
right here.
Yeah, right here.
Okay, fine.
5 minutes.
Okay. Ah.
Compliments of a house, sir.
Well, thank you very much. That's just what I needed.
What is the name of your movie?
D-Day Revisited.
D-Day?
D-Day. How old are you?
22.
No, you're younger than that.
No, 22.
You sure?
Yeah.
Well, that explains why you do not know what happened on this bridge on D-Day. Now, I'm going to take you on a tour. The Germans were here on this side of the bridge, heavily fortified. And on that side of the bridge, across the river, the British gliders crash-landed in the darkness, in the middle of the night, one on top of another, and the battle was fought on this bridge. It was one of the most crucial battles of World War II. When the British commandos had full control of the bridge, and it was really in their hands, then the French resistance movement went into action, the underground. They wrecked telephone lines, they blew up bridges, and really raised havoc with the Germans from one end of France to the other.
I had no idea all of that went on right here.
Yes, it did.
Excusez-moi.
We'll be ready in about 5 minutes, Mr. Zanuck.
Okay, but hurry it up. We are now approaching Pointe du Hoc. It lies almost midway between the 5 invasion beaches and overlooks Omaha Beach on the left and Utah Beach on the right. The German bunkers and underground fortifications here were considered unassailable. But if this rugged cliff that jutted out into the English Channel could be taken, it would divert the enemy from offense to defense. Volunteer American Rangers had been especially equipped and trained as mountain climbers for this attack. From this place, the Pointe du Hoc, German guns were capable of bombarding both the Omaha and Utah invasion beaches. Allied intelligence hoped that the Germans had not found the secret of our actual landing spots. The invasion here was carried out by only 225 American Rangers. They attacked head-on, right here, against the enemy on this sheer 100-foot cliff. This is one of approximately 1,000 Nazi bunkers. As you can see, it was eventually demolished, not by direct bomb hits from the air, but by bloody hand-to-hand fighting when the Allied force got off the beach and reached high ground. This is an aerial bomb crater. Difficult to visualize how it looked 25 years ago. In memory of the heroic Ranger Commandos of the 116th Infantry of the 1st American Division, who attacked and took possession of the Pointe du Hoc. 3 days of fighting, not without enormous casualties. This was not only the most heavily armed bunker in the entire enemy fortification line, it was also a key observation point. Therefore, knocking it out was vital to the success of the invasion. Prior to D-Day, Allied bombers had repeatedly hit these key bunkers and fortifications, but had failed to permanently destroy them. This is what the American Rangers had to climb up with their grappling hooks and their ladders. And you must remember that right here were the Germans. And they were at least 3-1 outmanning the Rangers. It was a very tough battle. The Rangers finally took it, but with 75% casualties. Our helicopter is now approaching the beautiful, peaceful, and colorful fishing village of Ouistreham on the Channel coast. Ouistreham is not far from the 5 principal Allied invasion beaches. It was the headquarters of a crack German garrison located in the casino at the edge of the beach and in a hotel directly across from the casino. Both the hotel and the casino were completely demolished in the attack and have never been rebuilt. This is how Ouistreham looks today, and it is almost impossible to visualize the savage fighting that took place in this picturesque setting, where French commandos, under the leadership of Commandant Kiefer, who was repeatedly wounded, successfully concluded their suicidal assignment. It was a spectacular and courageous operation, but the French finally succeeded.
Bonjour, Monsieur Zanuck.
Oh, bonjour, depuis longtemps.
Mais oui, depuis
Oui.
7 ans.
7
nous
ans,
nous étions
vous
pas
avez
revus.
raison. Est-ce que vous avez vu le jeu le plus long?
Mais oui, j'étais déjà maire à ce moment-là, et c'est moi
oui,
qui vous
oui,
ai reçu.
oui, je me rappelle.
Oui, oui.
Nous avons tourné ici, et
Mais
vous avez
oui.
l'hôtel et le casino.
C'est
et
ça.
tout, et maintenant, c'est complètement...
Ah, c'est complètement changé
Oui.
parce que la
Mais vous
construction-
n'avez pas changé.
Mais je me défends comme je peux.
Oui. Vous êtes encore le maire?
Je suis toujours le maire, mais oui.
Très bien.
Eh, au revoir, monsieur.
Au revoir. We are now on Omaha Beach, the most important of the 5 principal Allied landing areas. This is how it looks today. A far cry from the blood-drenched stretch of sand of 25 years ago. Like all of Normandy, it is today a popular summer vacation area. Note the hundreds of tents. Camping out has become a popular French sport. Occasionally, you can still see bomb craters. At 5:30 in the morning of June 6, 1944, the Americans attacked, covered by the greatest armada ever assembled, including battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and hundreds of landing craft. 5,000 troops were involved in these landings. They came ashore in wave after wave against murderous fire. They stormed the heavily mined beaches, suffering terrible casualties. This is not a monument, but it is a landmark. This is the only German bunker on Omaha Beach that was not knocked out by the Allied Air Force or the Allied naval bombardment. As you can see, it has a clear view of the entire Omaha Beach, and therefore it caused damage, and great damage. As a matter of fact, it is estimated that 10% of the casualties on the beach were caused by this cannon. The French resistance received the long-awaited message and went into action. They played a great role in the final victory. This is one of literally hundreds of Nazi-controlled railroad and communication key points. They were sabotaged repeatedly by the brilliant French resistance movement. Bonjour, monsieur.
Bonjour.
Vous travaillez ici longtemps?
Ah oui, monsieur.
Pendant la guerre?
Eh oui.
Vous êtes dans les résistances?
Naturellement, j'ai fait sauter les trains, non? Là. Et là-bas.
Ah, bravo. Félicitations.
Merci, monsieur.
Au revoir.
Au revoir, monsieur.
8 years ago, when I started actual preparation on the longest day, I spent 3 months with my military and technical advisors, surveying not only the invasion areas, but all of the many war museums in Normandy, such as this important one at Arromanches. While the Allied invasion of Nazi-occupied Europe was unquestionably the greatest military feat in history, it was also the beginning of the end for Hitler. There are those, even today, who are unable to fathom the stupidity of certain brilliant German generals such as Rommel, von Rundstedt, Blumentritt, and Marx. It was not a question of stupidity on the part of Rommel and other non-Nazi generals. This map clearly indicates why Hitler and his astrologers and many of the generals close to him were convinced that the logical invasion target would be at Pas-de-Calais. Pas-de-Calais is here, Dover, Calais. Why did the Allies take the long, rugged route to Normandy? As you can see, the difference was 5 times longer. Here we are in England, and here are the Normandy beaches. St. Mere-Eglise, Pointe du Hoc, Ouistreham, and right at this point was the invasion. At Hitler's insistence, 3 crack Nazi panzer divisions were held in reserve in the Pas-de-Calais area, and they still were there even after the first waves of Allied troops were on the Normandy beaches and moving inland. A large share of credit for the success of the invasion goes not only to the do-or-die bravery of the Allied troops and their leaders, but to the brilliance of the Allied planning and intelligence services. Over a period of months, Allied intelligence had dropped volunteer agents into the Pas-de-Calais area, and these volunteers deliberately let themselves be captured. They carried fake maps and secret messages that could easily be decoded by the Germans. In addition, Allied bombing raids were not only concentrated on Normandy, but also on the Pas-de-Calais area, and the enemy was further confused when the Cherbourg area was bombed. On several nights prior to June 6th, the Allies sent a mock fleet on mysterious cruises as closely as possible to the Pas-de-Calais. But far beyond the deceptive Allied strategy, Hitler was the father of the defeat he so richly deserved. On the deck of the flagship Augusta, the overall commander of the Allied invasion forces, General Omar Bradley, directed the combined attack, moving from beach to beach under constant fire from enemy shore batteries. The battle lasted throughout the day and throughout the night, but by morning, the Americans had established a beachhead right here, but not without tremendous casualties on both sides. This is now known as Utah Beach, where by a navigational error, the American 4th Division, commanded by Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt, Jr., landed on the wrong beach. first wave of Canadians at Juno Beach and the English at Sword Beach, under the command of Lord Lovett, lunged ashore with typical British disdain for the enemy. From one end of Normandy to the other, the constant cry was, "Get off the beaches, get off the beaches." This is it, bloody Omaha. When I announced I was going to produce The Longest Day, many people asked me why. I had many reasons. Having served in France in World War I when I was 14 years old as a private, I had also served in World War II as a colonel in France and North Africa. That's where I got this. The incredible story of D-Day and the invasion of Nazi-occupied Europe has always fascinated me, as it was unquestionably the most hazardous undertaking in military history. Other people asked me if war pictures might unfavorably influence the younger generation. I did not agree. I thought that reproducing authentically the brutality and inhumanity of war would have the opposite effect. Obviously, I was wrong. In spite of the worldwide success of The Longest Day, which played to more audiences than any other black and white film in history, it certainly didn't have the effect I had hoped for. In the 7 years that have passed since I finished The Longest Day, we have had Korea, the Middle East conflict between Israel and the Arabs, revolts and wars in more than half of Africa, and now we've had Vietnam. Clearly, my ideal did not materialize. There are more than 9,000 American soldiers buried here at Omaha. Untold thousands of British, French, and Germans are buried in similar cemeteries elsewhere. If these men had a voice in the matter, I am sure there would be no more wars. Here rests in honored glory a comrade in arms, known but to God.